Gonzo, has been a quiet few days in the world of West Ham. It felt like an international break on FA Cup weekend as we were not involved. So there's not been loads of news. So when there has been some news or something going around, everybody sees it and you notice more of it, unlike the transfer window when it just disappears quite quickly. News at 3 p.m. is old by 5 p.m. Today, news from Saturday is still valid on Monday afternoon.
Breaking news.
It's still there. Anyway, Dan Ashworth is being linked to West Ham. We'll use that term loosely because I feel like it's more of a desire than something that might happen. I just want to hand the floor over to you. What do you reckon?
I view Dan Ashworth as... Well, let's move it over to Aaron Wan-Bissaka for a second, who has got nothing to do with Dan Ashworth. Well, I guess there's a few degrees of separation, bearing in mind they were both at Manchester United, albeit fleetingly for Ashworth. Sometimes you need things to go a little bit badly for somebody for you to be able to get them. And obviously only in football terms. It's not love advice, by the way, anyone. I think when you look at Wan-Bissaka is perceived in the same way as maybe Wilfried Zaha is perceived to have gone to a big club. You can make up your mind whether you think he was a success or a failure. But realistically, we bought him for, let's call it 15 million. But he went there as a £50 million player. Now, what we are seeing is far more. We're now seeing the type of guy that Manchester United thought they were getting when they signed him. And now I think because of his age, because of the time that he spent at Manchester United, because he's seen to have not succeeded, we are in a situation where we can sort of look forward to keeping him in the long term. I think if he'd come through, or maybe we signed him from Ipswich or something, and he was playing like he is now, we wouldn't stand a cat in hell's chance of keeping Wan-Bissaka. He'd be that good. All the big clubs be circling. I think we're going to take him off your hands. And I do wonder if we've got that sort of perfect moment to get Dan Ashworth. Would we be able to get him off Brighton? No chance. To get him off Newcastle? No chance. But he would now be perceived as maybe not damaged goods, if you like, but it was almost like the bigger clubs have taken a bite. You know, they've had a go. They've tried to get him there, and he is now unemployed. There's no way in my mind I ever would have thought Dan Ashworth would have been unemployed. But sometimes like things just line up and the planets align. And I do wonder if he's looking at it. Because just going back to that Wan-Bissaka or Wilfried Zaha or whatever it is, sometimes you just look and think, I just want to be involved. I just want to be playing again. I just want to be important. And it might well be that being that big fish in the smaller pond. I do wonder if he's probably looks back and he thinks actually the best time of my career was at Brighton. And I wonder if he might be looking at, and obviously we're a bigger club than Brighton, he might be looking at that now. He's seeing Potter here, he's seeing McCauley here. And West Ham undoubtedly need somebody else because it does feel like we're short-staffed in that department. And we obviously know that Ashworth was not the talent spotter. He was the one that built the infrastructure. But we've got one of the talent spotters there. One of them was McCauley. The other one was Winstanley. But you wouldn't expect him to completely put together what happened at Brighton. But he will have worked with enough people over the years, be it at Newcastle, be it at Brighton, or be it at Manchester United. He will have identified other people. So it doesn't have to be Paul Winstanley. If he'd have worked with people, okay, then there's a scout that can step up and do this. Perhaps I can bring him more into the data analysis part. I think it'd be a really good thing. I think it'd be opportunistic. I think it'd be the right timing. But what would be crucial to this, Geo, is David Sullivan would have to take a step back because at this point, it would now be the time. We didn't do this with Steidten. For whether that was a good or bad thing to do, doesn't matter now. If we get this guy, he runs football operations. That's what he does. At that point, we do not get involved anymore. You take a step back, and I think if we're going to do it, that would have to go that way.
There's a significant difference, I think, between Tim Steidten and Dan Ashworth, though, and that is that Steidten essentially got a promotion coming to West Ham when he was at Leverkusen. He was head of squad, if you like. That's what his job was. Can't remember exactly what his job title was, but he had Rolf as ahead of him. So it was a promotion coming to us, and I think there was always going to be teething problems, and I think there was also ego problems as well as the actual learning on the job to some extent. It was a bit of a car crash in the end, and it's got ugly quite quickly this season, post-summer transfer window. As soon as it was shut, it felt like the daggers were getting sharpened for Steidten, and it's continued since Steidten left. He's gone, said some nice things about West Ham. The Athletic put out an article which had a few little digs at West Ham and a few little digs at Tim Steidten. But he's gone now. But there still feels like there's almost like the smell of Tim Steidten is still around. It's a bit like the Guilherme one, the deal. Oh, well, because of what Tim Steidten done. Looking to the summer. Oh, well, because of the Todibo deal that Tim Steidten done. And it feels like the aftermath is still here. But with Dan Ashworth, there is no learning on the job. There is no promotion. This is what he does. He runs the footballing side, and he is used to a hands-on chairman because he had it with Tony Bloom. Tony Bloom's not exactly somebody that has nothing to do with Brighton. He is Brighton. So he's used to someone else being above him that maybe is controlling, and he can succeed under him. At his time at Newcastle as well, they brought in some fantastic players too when they went there. And my thing, and I don't know if this is what Dan Ashworth did at Brighton, maybe you can enlighten me. Was he the negotiations guy? Was he the one that did the deals?
I think he may have been, but he certainly set up the department. I think that was, and he set up the department, he set up the infrastructure, because West Ham are definitely lacking the negotiator at the moment.
That's what we need, because I think that's what Tim Steidten was good at. He was a schmoozer. He was able to get on his jet, go to the Netherlands, get Kudus and Alvarez, and bring them back to West Ham. And since post Steidten, there's been almost like a thing saying, well, he didn't even sign Kudus and Alvarez. Well, okay, if you want to claim that, but then you're calling Alvarez and Kudus liars because they both referenced Tim Steidten as reasons to join West Ham, and how he was the one that convinced them. We might have identified those players before Tim Steidten, but he was the one that went and got those deals done and got them to West Ham United. And I feel like there's a bit of a campaign going on post Steidten. So actually, it wasn't even him that got those players. All right, well, so
it was.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I believe that we did identify Alvarez and Kudus prior to Steidten coming here, but he was the one that went and got them. If not, then why didn't we go get him before Tim Steidten?
Yeah.
So, but the negotiating side of things, we've had one transfer window post Steidten, and it wasn't a very successful one. I'm happy with how it turned out, by the way. I'm not changing my tune, but I think it's fair to say that we tried getting more players than just Evan Ferguson. I think that is a fair comment to make. Therefore, from the negotiating standpoint, it wasn't. And you could even look at the Evan Ferguson one. I mean, Gonzo are okay with no option to buy, but plenty aren't. And we get it. We do get it. But those would argue even the Evan Ferguson deal isn't that good because there's no option to buy in there. There's no protection for West Ham. So I think we definitely need somebody at the club that can handle the negotiations in the summer, because one of my biggest fears with Kyle McCauley is you can identify all the talent in the world. You can identify the best talent, the upcoming talent in the world. But if the person in charge of going and getting those players is crap at their job, it's pointless to some extent. You better come up with a list of 15 people per position, because you ain't getting your first one, and you might not even get your second, third, or fourth one. So make sure you got a fifth one on that list, please, because the guy negotiating is not capable of getting your number one target. And that's my biggest fear. And Ashworth coming in and then setting that part up at the club would give me a big relief. The less David Sullivan has to do at a football club, the better. That's how I see it. And I think Ashworth coming in would allow that to occur. The one thing I'm not getting too caught up in is I think a lot of people perhaps see Potter and Ashworth as a team. It's not really something I subscribe to. Yes, they've worked together before, but I think Ashworth would be good without Potter, and I think Potter would be good without Ashworth, if that makes sense. I think they're both really good at their roles. We know they can work together. It may be the dream team, but this is another reason I want Dan Ashworth, because one of my biggest fears at the minute is that, say things go well under Potter and McCauley for a couple of years, at some point they're going to leave the club. At some point, Potter's going to leave because he's been really successful, and he wants another crack at a Champions League club, which I think he does. Or he's been crap and he gets sacked, which one of the two is going to happen. And I think it's a fair assumption that Kyle McCauley will eventually go if Potter goes, even if he has to wait for Potter to get a new job. I see no reasons why Potter won't come back and get him, because he's done it with West Ham. Yeah. And my fear is if that happens, then we're back to where we were pre-Tim Steidten. We're all the way back to
it's the same. It's Huselos and Pellegrini. It's everything. It's all of it. Yeah.
And I feel the club need to protect themselves from that scenario. And I think someone coming in like Dan Ashworth gives us that protection so that he can plan the succession. Because I was hoping foolishly that Tim Steidten coming in would mean that we would have a succession plan for David Moyes. We didn't. No one will convince me at all that we knew exactly who was coming in after David Moyes. I think we knew Moyes was leaving before we knew who we wanted to replace David Moyes, and that was just horrifically bad.
Yeah, but that's because of the composition of the board and the way that's done.
Yeah.
What we may well have been the case is Steidten may well have known exactly who he wanted to replace Moyes with. But if you're not going to give that guy any power, then it's almost pointless him being there. So that's obviously why he's got to step away. The fact that you're absolutely right, they don't have to go hand in hand, Potter and Ashworth. But bearing in mind what we just been through with Steidten falling out with Lopetegui, with Steidten being banned from the training ground and the dressing room by David Moyes, the fact that the director of football might get on with a head coach is something to be coveted at West Ham. Our expectations are so low. Even that, people getting on with each other at management level would elevate the club and be an improvement because everyone's been fighting. So yeah, I'd be all for it, Gio. I'd be all for it. I think it would be. We often said that. Well, I can only speak for myself, and I know I speak for you on this. I'm not going to speak for anyone watching this. There was always that thing about, there you go, we're at the London Stadium. We said moving to the London Stadium, we would win trophies and we would get regularly European football. And yes, but that was accidental because the coach that did it, you'd already got rid of. Right? That was really down to David Moyes. That was down to how wonderfully he led the club through COVID. And there was a whole number of circumstances which weren't part of the 10-point plan, right? That they weren't. So we argued that maybe West Ham qualified for Europe in spite of what happened rather than as a result of a structure that had been put in place. But that's all right, by the way. Grabbing surprise opportunity is no bad thing. You've just got to recognise that it's there. And I think we did.
Are you suggesting David Sullivan is not responsible for the pandemic, which seen us getting in?
It was him. I didn't know whether it was a lab or whatever. Yeah, that was him. I think we find ourselves in that situation before where good fortune has crossed our path. And we might have planned to have it. So the plan was that Steidten comes in, he's director of football, and he reshapes the future of the club. Well, that's capitulated, just like the Pellegrini thing capitulated. The fallout from that was we might have to go back to that other bloke who wasn't totally shit, in David Moyes, and we'll appoint him just to save us again. No one knew about European football then. No one. There was no European trophy. Do me a favour. But it just shows out the ruins of something that's gone wrong. You can find some encouragement, and maybe we got it totally wrong with Steidten. But whoever's fault it is, doesn't matter whether it's Steidten's or Sullivan's or anyone else. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. But actually, as a result, because we've hired this coach who nobody really wanted, even the owner didn't want him, and it was Karren Brady said, "Oh, my husband's mate can do a little bit on the old training pitch." We get him. All of a sudden, we get Chelsea's data analyst, and then Man United, who looks to be in a bigger mess than West Ham have been, and we suddenly might well get the most highly sought after director of football. Accidental, yes, but as we've seen in our own experience, accidental opportunity can turn out to be quite good.
Do you believe it at all?
I believe there's a chance. I would be amazed. I'd be amazed if they hadn't had a conversation. If Potter or Ashworth had not spoke, that is more unbelievable. If you were to tell me they've never since Potter got the job at West Ham, Ashworth and Potter have not spoken on the phone.
Well, actually, I can give you evidence as to that they have spoken. Not at West Ham, because when Ashworth was at Man United, he wanted Graham Potter to take over from Erik Ten Hag.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, so
those conversations. It was obviously this is a Man United thing, but they were strongly not quite the photographic evidence of Tim Steidten and Graham Potter, but there was really strong rumours that Ashworth had met up and had conversation with Potter about going to Old Trafford, and he was Southgate was the other name, obviously, but Graham Potter was someone Ashworth wanted at Man U.
Right. So from that, can we could probably, I think it were a safe guess to say they would have had a conversation. Then what you have to ask is, if they've had that conversation, would Potter during the course of conversation say, there might be a job here for you, mate? Because I would do that. If you and me have been working, we have been working together for years, and so, whatever, I'd turn around to you and say, Geo, there's old
How are you at pinball presenting?
Absolutely. No, but you would,
So I'm going to be a pinball fluffer. Is that it?
Well, no, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Maybe I go off that's a ridiculous proposition. Maybe I go and do a Formula One channel, and all of a sudden something comes up, and they need a little dual thing going on here for a live stream on F1. Fancy coming and working in the paddock. I just think you would have that conversation. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't have done. Then the only question is, has he got offers from elsewhere? You just don't know. But the other thing then, would Potter be able to say to David Sullivan, can we get this guy in? Well, he's already done that. He negotiated hard, not only to bring in, there's something about, I've got to say this now. This is the smiling assassin, Graham Potter. Go back and watch that video of him doing his first day at the training ground, Graham Potter and Tim Steidten showing him around. They're shaking hands. They're smiling. They're going to have a chat with Dinos Mavropanos, he's in the gym. Then they go and stand in the gym. Now watch that. But when you watch it, now know that Graham Potter has already said he's got to go, because that's what's happened. He's got to go. I cannot do this. We even know that when he did his press conference. Graham Potter was asked about Tim Steidten and he completely avoided it. He turned around and said, well, I'm looking forward to working with numerous people at West Ham. Right, that's what he asked. They said, "Are you looking forward to working with Tim Steidten?" Well, I'm looking forward to working with lots of people at West Ham. I mean, if that's not a brush off, I don't know what is. So this guy's got a ruthless streak, Geo. Make no mistake about this. He has got a ruthless streak. So if he's confident enough to do that, to negotiate with David Sullivan and Karren Brady, say, I want my own guy in McCauley. And by the way, that guy's got to go. This guy, because we know that Graham Potter knows David Moyes very well, right? They know each other very well. Moyes obviously said to him, he's a tosser. You've got to get him out of there. Allegedly, sorry. Don't want to rip from David Moyes. I didn't say that, but I doubt he'd be offended with me saying that. Is Potter brave enough to go to David Sullivan and say, I want Ashworth in? Of course he is. We've already seen the evidence of that.
Well, I think the key thing for Potter is he's actually got his ally in the boardroom isn't necessarily David Sullivan, it's Karren Brady, and she wields a lot of power at West Ham. If there's one person I think can get Sullivan to change his mind, it's her.
It's true.
And I would include David Gold in that as well. I don't even think David Gold could persuade David Sullivan regarding football and things, because when they first dismissed David Moyes, the first time they got rid of him, Gold wanted to keep him. And Sullivan said, no, we're not keeping Moyes. We're moving on from David Moyes. So I think with the appointment of Potter, it was very well known Sullivan is not keen on him or has not been keen on him, but Brady got him to change his mind. So I think there's plenty of evidence. A, she can get him to do that, and B, she's very team Potter on this one. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the past she's been quite team David Sullivan on a lot of things, but on this one, he might find himself that his vice chair is actually team Graham Potter, because if she's got any, I don't know if she does, but if she's got any ambition to become a chairwoman of a football club, the top dog at a football club, she's got to sort of prove it to some extent. And here's your opportunity. If you appoint Graham Potter and he does well at West Ham, she's the one that comes out of this looking incredibly good. So if Potter said, well, I could do with this, I think there's one person at a football club that will be bending over backwards to get it done. And I think it might be Karren Brady rather than David Sullivan. I don't think it'll happen because of David Sullivan. I don't think he'll allow someone to come in because the thing with Tim Steidten was he didn't get that power, did he? He came in, but he was not given that authority. And I think with Ashworth, you'd have to give him that. I don't think Ashworth would come in and accept being a guy that went around spending a bit of money in the transfer window and that was it. I don't think he would accept that role. He wants to come in and be the chief. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think Sullivan would give that up at all. But I've had one transfer window under Sullivan again. And I know some will say he was never not doing transfer business and stuff. I think there was a massive difference between the summer and January. I do. When Steidten was in the summer, Sullivan in January, I think there was a huge difference just with messages, the bids, even now. Oh yeah, we're bidding 57 million for John Durand, and it's we're skint for the summer. Well, which is it? You can't really do both. It can't be both. So are we skint or are we not skint? So it feels like we're back into the playbook David Sullivan, and I don't like it. It winds me right up, and it's something I wish I could. Do you know that phrase lives rent free? He's got that with me. I hate it. I don't want him to. I try and ignore him, but I can't because I care too much about what we have in common, and that's West Ham United, and that's where I struggle. But
Ashworth, I wonder what you was going to say then.
Ashworth, I would love it, but I just don't believe it. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, mate.
Well, there you go. Get your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up. Subscribe to Damage Chat, myself and Gonzo. Catch you in a bit.